Should you strap a GoPro to your DJI FPV? That's the question that many FPV owners are asking, and today I'm going to show you some of the reasons why you might want to do that and some of the downsides to actually going that route. Stick around for the end of the video. I have some A and B comparisons and some of my best footage that I've gotten with this combo so far. Let's get started. So here are the pros on why you may want to strap a GoPro to your DJI FPV. Basically, everyone is thinking the quality is going to be significantly better, and in my opinion, it is much better quality. I like the color of the GoPro much better. You also get 24 FPS, which as of right now, the DJI FPV does not allow you to shoot in 24 FPS or even 30 FPS. I think it is limited to 60 FPS and above. GoPros also have a ton of versatility. If you're like myself and you didn't have a GoPro before getting the DJI FPV, well then you'll be able to do so much with the GoPro. For instance, I used it on my Spartan race that I did with some friends. I just strapped it to my chest and filmed the entire thing. One of the big benefits of strapping a GoPro on to the DJI FPV is that you can then pretty much leave your camera in auto mode, although you won't get matching settings to your GoPro. The reason I like doing that is because I don't necessarily want to expose my eyes in the same way that I want to expose the GoPro camera. One of the biggest advantages of the GoPro is the gyro data and mixing that with real steady. I love the footage stabilization of that program, and mixed with the GoPro, it's just awesome. So that's pretty much it for the pros of strapping a GoPro on. Let's jump into the negatives. So something I really had to consider when I first got the DJI FPV and as a beginner FPV flyer was that I'm throwing a drone up in the air that's really expensive, and now if I strap a GoPro on it, I'm adding even more value to it. Number two, it may void the DJI warranty. Not much to add to that. Warranty is pretty important with this drone though, I will say. So typically when I'm flying at full speed, I get around 15 minutes. So keep in mind that having a GoPro on top is also going to reduce the flight time by a pretty significant amount. Of course, that depends on which GoPro you have, or if you're even using a different camera, how fast you're flying, how far you're flying, a whole bunch of different factors, but it is going to be less, of course. The actual DJI FPV is not going to take that into account, so you have to be cognizant of that as you're flying. Now these next three kind of all go together, and that is that you can't control the camera once it's up there. You have to be really diligent about hitting that record button on the GoPro before sending it up in the air. Of course, other drones that we're used to flying, like myself, you hit record when it's in the air, so that's just a natural habit. It's just something you get used to over time. You just have to make sure you hit record. Now you also can't adjust the angle of the GoPro once it's up there as well, so you can't get those cinematic reveal shots, or at least the ones where I'm thinking about tilting up, and you have to make sure that you're flying at the same exact camera angle as the GoPro. Otherwise you will not get the same footage at all. Your camera may be looking a completely different direction. What you see isn't always what you get. Now, especially if you were shooting in auto on the DJI FPV and then manual completely on the GoPro. Now I personally like that, but it is somewhat annoying in the same breath that if I'm overexposed on my GoPro, I won't actually know that on my DJI FPV. And last but not least, it adds to the setup time having to strap a GoPro on top of the drone. Of course, it's nothing significant, but it's definitely more than if you were to just send the DJI FPV up in the air without one. And also one thing I wanted to mention is I've been getting a weird warping issue in my GoPro footage that I wanted to point out. I thought it was real steady, but I don't believe it is. I've also observed it in other people's footage with this setup, so if anybody has a solution for it or knows what the heck is going on with it, please drop a comment down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. When it comes to mounts for actually mounting the GoPro, I've landed on this one so far. They all seem to be 3D printed, and that's perfectly fine by me. They're fairly inexpensive. I'll drop some links down below. Keep in mind those are affiliate links, so if you use them, I do get a small percentage, and that does help the channel. This is the second mount that I have, and I find it to be very sturdy. It has a little pad on the front underneath here, so it dampens the vibrations just a little bit. And I won't speak too much about mounts because I think we're still learning a lot as we kind of go with these. There's not a ton on the market, but there's enough to kind of get going. So as long as it is sturdy enough to hold your GoPro, it should be fine. So I'm already at 17 satellites with the mount on. I'm gonna go ahead and take the mount off and see if that makes any difference. So after I took the GoPro mounts off, I was still getting around 17 satellites. So I was getting 17 before and 17 after. It grazed 18 for like a second, but it was probably just because it was sitting there and not having to do with the mount. So ultimately, I didn't really see much of a difference after taking it off. So without further ado, here are some A and B shots between the two cameras and some of my favorite shots so far with this combo.
3, 2, 1.
So I hope you enjoyed those clips. As you can tell, there are a ton of pros and cons to this combo. I personally have been loving it so far, but if you made it this far in this video, comment down below drone squad. I would love to see some of the people out there, fellow drone operators, and comment down below also which camera you thought performed better. I'm very curious. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Matt Zeffi, and I'll see you next time.